I am Jennifer Matson. I'm the rector here at St. Thomas Episcopal Church, and we are gathering to see the Philadelphia 11 documentary, which explores the story of the original 11 women who were first ordained irregularly in the Episcopal Church in 1974.
Well, I got out of being on the panel by offering to moderate. So it's really fun to come up with hard questions that you don't have to answer yourself. And I think, honestly, the hardest thing we had to do was to select our panelists. What you have before you are 6 of the most faithful women that I know. Now, we have in our diocese 37 women in ordained active ministry. We have 36 men, so we're actually one more than men. We also have one non-binary person who serves as an ordained minister in our church. Additionally, we have currently 9 active deacons, vocational deacons. 5 of them are men, and 4 of them are women. So here's the first question. I'm going to start with Jennifer, since she's the rector of St. Thomas. Can you share something about your ministry, a brief story or a project that you did, or some kind of example that speaks uniquely to your ministry as a woman?
The thing that came to my mind after really thinking about this was actually prison ministry. That is the place where the embodiment of being a woman, I think, has had probably the greatest impact. I started with women, and it was a small Bible study kind of group, and for many of the women, it was the first time that they had ever met a woman pastor, and it was a game changer for them. It really meant the world.
I think what I find most interesting is how women get together when there is a need. And I have found it within our diocese. Years ago, we raised the women $38,000 to build a birthing room for HIV positive women in Africa so that they could deliver their babies safely. And outside of here, recently, I went to Magdalene House, Omaha, and I was just, I'm going to start crying. It was just amazing there. The women that were survivors and a priest that was there, she was also a survivor of abuse, and how they cared for other women and how they opened up their heart and took care of these women. That was so powerful to me.
When I was a seminarian, we had a seminar course during a time when we were invited to do some type of research project, and one of mine was women in ordination in the Church of God in Christ. Although women were not permitted to be ordained, they still held prominent roles. So I did this survey. Just a few questions about, how comfortable people would be under a woman pastor, women leading and being ordained and having their own churches. The results were interesting because there were more men who were supportive of women in ministry than women. I was shocked. I was like, we can be our best friend and we can also be our worst enemy. From that moment forward, I declared to myself that I would support a woman in ministry no matter what. Girl power, black girl magic, I'm showing up. When I came into the Episcopal Church, and it was by invitation of Father David, my current rector, Father David Peck. And I've never been invited to discern ministry by anyone, but no one has ever asked me to lead until David. And sometimes it just takes that one person to invite you in. So that's where my path started.
I've been ordained, it's over 35 years right now. And one of the things that really kept launching me into a new space was something natural for women, and that's care of children. I worked with a group who developed the Children's Charter for the Church. I don't know if anybody even remembers that, but it was a great, thank you, Jennifer. It was a statement for congregations to look at the way they support and serve children. And so one of the questions I just innocently asked was, where are children at the General Convention? What is being provided? Well, the answer was they weren't. So what we did is, and thanks to Ed Browning at the time, who was the presiding bishop, he actually gave us, and I coordinated this, but he gave us the most sought after piece of real estate at the exhibit hall. And we created a living kind of great kiosk, giant kiosk, for the Children's Charter, represented the Children's Charter, which was ministry to, ministry with, and ministry by children.
I would have to say that the prison ministry is awesome. I mean, it just sounds very strange to say I love going to prison, but I do. I look forward to it. It is also where I feel God's calling me now. We all stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. What women, and that's really what this movie is about tonight, right? What women or men in your lives have inspired you, supported you? Whose shoulders are you standing on?
I'll never forget the time when I was recently ordained when Barbara Harris was elected bishop. And she came to a group of us women who had gathered at General Seminary just to talk to us, to tell us what it was really like. And I'll never forget this statement of hers, because I don't know how many of you ever met her, but she was an amazing, dynamic woman in all kinds of ways, but liked her cigarette and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, she's there and she's smoking. The faster she's talking, the more she's smoking, and she's going, they think of me now as the Wicked Witch of the West. And boy, was that true. I mean, she had so many death threats, etc., etc. And who would ever think that in the church?
I had the honor and the opportunity to have my curacy with the very Reverend Amy Wellen, who is like my homie. I love her.
One of the strongest people, I think, is my mother. She is an amazing person, and if you've met her, you would know. And she is always changing her aspects on different types of her spirituality. She's always learning and actually right now teaching, as some people in this room might know. She's leading a Bible study right now at her home, and she's 93 years old.
The first person that ever talked to me about ordained ministry was Gary Nicolosi, who was the rector at St. Thomas at the time. He grabbed me after church one hot Sunday in August, and he said, "Have you thought about being a deacon?" And I said, "No, thank you." And he said, "Well, I did, and I enrolled you in the School of Christian Studies. It's a year-long course, and it will help you decide if you should do this or not. So just go up there in 2 weeks, and they'll take care of you."
I gotta tell you, when I was first ordained, the church, they issued a schedule of when I was going to be celebrating communion, because there were some folks who didn't want to receive girl communion. And you want to have tough skin, you want to be above it, you want to be like, I'm the cool lady that it doesn't bother. But it did. It got under my skin. It was hurtful. And it was years and years and years of this. And yes, I understood theological, all that stuff, but it hurt. And then one day, I get to know Robin, and she tells me this story about how her congregation, I think was one of your first ones, that half of them turned their back on you when you were celebrating communion. And I never forgot that, and it was so meaningful to me to know that you had gotten through that, and you're one of the most vibrant, just joyful, alive priests that I know. You deeply care about children and so many things that just were so important to me, and it made me feel like I could have permission to continue to care about those things and just to kind of stay with it and to stay encouraged. So thank you. I thought of that story a lot. I really did. It got me through kind of my own experience of working through hurt. So thank you.
I mean, Jez's been trying to get me to be a priest since she met me. And Priscilla Ginalfi was our deacon. I've grown up knowing people in the church. Audrey became our bishop when I was 15, and so to have those role models growing up was mean, I don't have words to describe like what that meant to me.
This has been wonderful to hear from all of you, and I'm sorry we didn't have more time. I think we could have been here much, much longer. But we do have a movie, and other people are joining us this evening, so we'll make our way into the sanctuary. Would you please give a round of applause for our panelists?